Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Uh, the next one in my series of off-the-cuff musings about practicalities is about parenting. I think perhaps the most underutilized tool in good parenting is guilt. That's gotten a terrible word. Invoke guilt in your child. How terrible. You know, talk about the Catholics invoking guilt. How terrible, terrible, terrible. But by invoking guilt as opposed to yelling at your kid or hitting your kid, um, or even just providing a rationale, tends to encourage intrinsic motivation. That is, making the kid want to behave because they feel a responsibility to behave. So, for example, if the kid doesn't do his homework, saying something like, and of course you can't say the same thing every time, but like, gee, I'm disappointed. You've been so grown up in other situations. Um, it's your responsibility to do your homework. I know it's boring. I found it boring too. But you'll learn some stuff from it, and certainly the discipline. I'm a little disappointed. I know you can do better. And then I walk out and don't expect an apology or whatever. But that invokes some guilt, which in a nicer phraseology is it builds intrinsic motivation. So I think that's I mentioned that first because it is so little used and yet so potent. The other major point I want to make is about this balance between permissiveness and limit setting. One size does not fit all. My own daughter was very compliant up through her teenage years, and so we need to set very few limits. We basically said, "What do you think, Amy? What do you want to do? What do you think is right, Amy? What do you think?" So, again, relying on the intrinsic motivation, we didn't need to set external limits very much at all. Certainly, I mean, when she was a little kid and she, would throw her food as a toddler or whatever, we would say, no, you can't do that or whatever. But it's going to depend on a kid. Some kids, you can do all that empowering and intrinsic motivation, and they won't respond. They're just too impulsive. So you need extrinsics, usually some combination of rewards and punishments. Rewards don't have to be concrete. It's too complicated to make them concrete, although occasionally that's necessary. But simply a praise or a pat on the shoulder, good job, is positive reinforcement. And the praise, the criticism, can indeed, I do not believe in corporal punishment. I really do not. Almost under no circumstances. But, punishment can be indeed the invocation of guilt, or it could be, no, you're not going to watch TV now for don't make it long-term punishments because those lose their impact. But no video games for tonight, or no, you can't watch that TV show, or no, not going to have ice cream for dessert because you did something bad, whatever it is. The combination of praise and punishment for kids for whom intrinsic motivation is not enough can work quite well. But back to this issue of laissez-faire versus limit setting. Maybe I don't need to say much more than that. What I guess is, of course, important is to, if you're in a two-parent family, to get both parents pretty much on the same page. No parents are perfectly consistent. You don't need to be perfectly consistent. Just with both parents kind of have a general agreement about things like how you're going to respond to when the kid doesn't want to go to bed at bedtime. How you're going to respond to you smell marijuana in the room. In just mealtime rules about how long they're supposed to expect to sit at the table. What are their chores supposed to be? You and your partner, and even if you're not living together, if it's you're in a divorced family, or for example, it would be really nice if the two parents can agree on the same set of rules, so that the kid doesn't play one off against the other, and it's more comforting for there to be one plan. Now, now I want to just talk a little bit about overprotectiveness versus letting the kid go, and it's a variation on the limit setting and laissez-faire thing. Of course, any stereotype has got many exceptions, but in general, women tend to be more protective. The moms tend to be more protective. The dads tend to encourage the kid to be a little more risk-taking. And at the risk of being a wishy-washy moderate, which I tend to be about some issues, I really think that's appropriate. I think there should be pretty damn firm limits around things that are clearly dangerous or bad, like driving while drunk, like unprotected sex, like even yelling at your parents, things like that. And some of these don't even need to be mentioned up front. But those need to be, I think, really clearly say, that's wrong. That is not acceptable in this house, and here is why. I do believe in giving reasons, and so explaining why that's inappropriate. You know, let's take the example where it's maybe not so obvious. Why shouldn't you be able to yell at your parents? You have every right to disagree with your parent, and you have every right to explain your rationale for why you are, and I have a responsibility to listen. But yelling doesn't accomplish anything, and I know that's your first visceral reaction, but we're going to accomplish much more if we can try to stay calm. We're human beings, we're not machines. We'll occasionally get angry, and I'll forgive you, and I understand that. But if we can resolve our differences with we're on the same side of the table, my son, my daughter, whatever you are. We want to work things out to what's best for you and best for me, best for the family. So let's have a conversation about it instead of yelling at me and calling me a bad name, which sometimes kids will do. Again, you don't need to be perfect, but if that's the general model where it's going to be discussed, where it's going to be discussed rationally, but sometimes you've got to say, I don't have time for long discussion. No, you're not going to get donuts, and you know why. Or even sometimes you don't have to say a word. Sometimes just an askance look can do it. So, brief summary of the major points. I think guilt is doesn't deserve its bad reputation. It's often a great way to invoke intrinsic motivation. Striking the balance between permissiveness / laissez-faire and limit setting. And especially if you're a woman, worry about being overprotective. That includes this helicoptering, monitoring they're doing their homework for them, helping them, forcing them to get their essays done, even writing their essay. That helicoptering thing is too far on one extreme. Not letting the kid climb the tree, or not letting the kid walk to school 7 blocks. There is something to be. There's a lot of insecurity that gets bred when a parent is overprotective. On the other hand, too much limit setting, of course, is also I guess too much laissez-faire is no good either. You've got to set some limits. So that striking that balance is critical. Whether you're a single parent or you need to negotiate that with the two sets of parents. And then as much as possible, giving a reason for why you're saying you're telling the kid to do X or Y. But if you don't have much time, keeping it brief. And then not to expect perfection. And no corporal punishment. That's it in a nutshell. World's shortest course in parenting. It has not only worked well for my own daughter, but I have counseled I'm a career counselor mainly, but very often family matters overlap into career stuff, and so I've had quite a bit of experience and successful experience in helping parents to deal with a challenging child. Of course, I'm talking about normal kids here. There are kids who are autistic or who have really serious problems for which this general advice won't be enough. But those are my thoughts. If you found this of any value, I welcome your thumbs upping it here on YouTube, sharing it on your social media, or writing a comment. Anyway, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.